Behind closed doors, in the shadows of history, some of the most powerful minds and influential figures gathered in secret. They performed rituals lost to time, guarded knowledge too dangerous for the public, and shaped the course of civilizations without anyone knowing their names. These weren't just meetings, they were ancient secret societies, and their mysteries have captivated historians and conspiracy theorists for centuries. What really happened in those hidden chambers? What forbidden knowledge did they protect? Today, we're pulling back the veil on 25 of the most enigmatic secret societies the world has ever known. From initiation rites that defied logic to ceremonies that blurred the line between magic and reality, their secrets have been buried deep until now. If you think you know history, think again, because the truth is far stranger and far darker than anything you've been taught. At the heart of ancient Greece, hidden among the olive groves and sacred temples, lay one of history's most guarded spiritual traditions, the Eleusinian mysteries. For over 1,000 years, this clandestine cult drew emperors, philosophers, and commoners alike into its shadowy embrace, promising divine revelation to those deemed worthy. At its core stood the myth of Demeter and Persephone, a mother's grief and a daughter's descent into the underworld, interwoven with rituals so powerful that speaking of them was punishable by death. The initiation began with a journey, a symbolic descent into darkness mirroring Persephone's fate. But the true heart of the ceremony lay in the kykeon, a mysterious brew rumored to hold hallucinogenic properties. Scholars suggest it contained ergot, a fungus linked to visions which may have sent initiates into ecstatic trances, convincing them they had touched the divine. They emerged reborn, sworn to eternal silence, a vow enforced with terrifying consequences. The penalty for revealing the rites wasn't just exile, it was execution. Even the great philosopher Socrates, when questioned about the mysteries, replied with eerie caution, hinting at knowledge too dangerous to share. What made these rituals so transformative and so forbidden? Some believe the cult held secrets about the cycle of life and death, insights that could shake the foundations of society if revealed. Others speculate it was the visceral experience itself, the terror, the transcendence that bound initiates to secrecy. Whatever the truth, the Eleusinian mysteries didn't just promise enlightenment. They delivered it, leaving their mark on everyone from Plato to Roman emperors. And yet, despite their influence, the full truth died with the last initiate, lost beneath the weight of centuries and the fear of a death sentence. Deep within the sacred grounds of Eleusis stood the Telesterion, a massive, windowless hall where the most profound secrets of the mysteries unfolded. This was no ordinary temple. Its very architecture was designed to disorient. Initiates entered through a labyrinth of columns, their footsteps echoing in the darkness, their senses heightened by days of fasting and anticipation. Then, in the pitch-black chamber, the climax of the ritual began, an overwhelming sensory experience that blurred the line between the mortal world and the divine. Ancient accounts describe sudden bursts of light, ear-shattering sounds, and apparitions that seemed to materialize from thin air. Modern researchers point to the kykeon, the ritual drink, as a possible catalyst. Brewed from barley infected with ergot, a fungus containing compounds similar to LSD, it may have triggered vivid hallucinations. Imagine standing in that darkness, your mind untethered, convinced you were witnessing the gods themselves. For some, it was euphoria, for others, sheer terror. Yet every initiate emerged with the same unshakable certainty. They had glimpsed the afterlife. What's truly striking is how this ritual defied logic. Unlike other mystery cults which relied on symbolic gestures, the Eleusinian experience was visceral and immediate. The Greeks called it epopteia, direct sight of the divine. Even hardened skeptics like the general Alcibiades, accused of mocking sacred rites, never dared reveal what happened inside, because the Telesterion didn't just teach secrets, it made you feel them. And that was a power no oath could fully capture, only silence could. Beneath the streets of ancient Rome and scattered across the edges of the empire, hidden chambers bore witness to one of history's most exclusive brotherhoods, the Mithraic mysteries. Unlike the Eleusinian cult, open to all, this was a secret society for men only, a fraternity of soldiers, merchants, and emperors bound by blood, stars, and the knife. At its core stood Mithras, the god of contracts, of light in darkness, but his worship was anything but orderly. The heart of the cult's rituals unfolded in their underground sanctuaries, known as Mithraea *. These weren't mere temples, they were caves carved into the earth designed to mirror the cosmos. Initiates descended into these dim chambers, their ceilings painted with constellations, their walls lined with benches where members reclined for sacred feasts. But the centerpiece was always the same, a chilling depiction of Mithras plunging his blade into the neck of a bull, a scene called the Tauroctony *. This wasn't just art, it was the cult's most sacred doctrine carved in stone. Scholars still debate the ritual's true meaning. Some see it as a map of the stars, with each element of the bull slaying representing constellations, the dog, the scorpion, even the cloak of Mithras itself mirroring the night sky. Others argue it symbolized renewal, the bull's blood fertilizing the earth, but for the initiates the message was clear: strength, loyalty, and rebirth through ordeal. The higher ranks of the cult endured mock battles, searing heat, and ritual humiliations, emerging with a new identity Invictus unconquered. What's striking is how tightly this brotherhood gripped Rome's elite. Emperors like Commodus reportedly joined, drawn to its warrior ethos. Legionnaires carried Mithras's image from Syria to Britain, spreading his cult like a shadow empire. Yet, unlike other religions, it left no texts, no grand temples, only those underground chambers and the silent Tauroctony, daring us to decipher its secrets. The Mithraic mysteries didn't just promise power, they forged men in darkness, then sealed their lips forever. While the Mithraic mysteries thrived in secrecy among Rome's elite, another far more visceral cult swept through the empire with a frenzy that defied all restraint: the cult of Cybele. Originating in Phrygia, this was no quiet brotherhood of philosophical initiates. It was a whirlwind of chaos, devotion, and raw, bloody ecstasy, all centered around the Great Mother, Cybele, the goddess of wild nature, untamed passion, and the terrifying power of creation and destruction. Unlike the carefully controlled rituals of Mithras, Cybele's worship was a spectacle of abandon. Her priests, known as the Galli *, were infamous across Rome for their frenzied processions, clad in vibrant robes, their faces smeared with blood, beating drums and wailing hymns that sent crowds into a collective trance. But the most shocking rite came during the Dies Sanguinis *, the Day of Blood, when devotion turned to self-mutilation in a display so extreme it left even hardened Romans aghast. At the festival's climax, amidst the pounding of drums and the screams of ecstatic followers, the Galli * would take blades to their own flesh in a ritual of castration, an act meant to mirror Cybele's mourning for her beloved Attis, who had castrated himself in a divine frenzy. Some accounts describe initiates overcome by the goddess's presence, seizing swords and emulating Attis then and there, dedicating themselves eternally as her eunuch priests. The streets ran red, not just with blood but with the fervor of absolute surrender. What drove men to such extremes? For the Galli *, this wasn't merely punishment, it was transformation. By shedding their masculinity, they became vessels of Cybele's power, living symbols of divine sacrifice. And yet, Rome, a society obsessed with order, both feared and revered them. Emperors like Claudius officially sanctioned the cult, even as senators whispered about its madness, because Cybele's worship revealed a truth few dared admit. that beneath civilization's polished surface lay a hunger for the primal, the uncontrollable, the divine chaos that could not be tamed. But perhaps the most haunting legacy of the *Galley* wasn't their rituals, it was their laughter. Amidst the blood and the blades, ancient texts describe them breaking into wild, hysterical joy. Because in Cybele's world, pain and ecstasy were one and the same, and to suffer was to touch the divine, and that was a secret no sword could ever carve away. Long before modern scientists unlocked the mysteries of numbers, a secretive brotherhood in ancient Greece believed mathematics held the key to the universe itself, the Pythagorean Brotherhood. Far more than just early mathematicians, these scholars lived like monks in a world governed by sacred geometry, mystical codes, and rules so strange they bordered on madness. Imagine a cult where numbers were gods, beans were forbidden, and silence wasn't just a vow, it was a way of life. At the heart of their doctrine lay a revelation that shook the ancient world. The harmony of the cosmos could be expressed in ratios. They discovered musical intervals corresponded to perfect fractions, like the octave vibrating at a 2-to-1 ratio. To Pythagoreans, this wasn't just science, it was divine language. They performed rituals with vibrating strings, believing these harmonies could purify the soul and align initiates with the music of the spheres, but their obsession went deeper. They saw sacred patterns everywhere, from the spirals of seashells to the orbits of planets, all reducible to numbers, yet their rules were as eccentric as their theories. Initiates swore oaths never to eat beans, a taboo so strict that legends claim Pythagoras himself chose death over fleeing through a bean field. Some speculate the prohibition tied to beliefs about reincarnation. Beans were thought to house souls, while others suggest it masked a secret symbol for democracy, which the Brotherhood opposed. Silence was another ironclad law. New members endured 5 years of mute obedience, listening to lectures from behind a curtain, proving their discipline before earning the right to speak. But the Pythagoreans' greatest secret wasn't their rituals, it was their downfall. When one member, Hippasus, allegedly proved the existence of irrational numbers values that couldn't be expressed as fractions, the Brotherhood reportedly drowned him at sea. Why? Because irrational numbers shattered their perfect worldview. The incident exposes the cult's dark side, a fanatical devotion to dogma, willing to kill to protect it. What lingers today isn't just their theorems, but their paradox. They unlocked truths that built modern science, yet clung to mysticism so fiercely it consumed them. The Pythagoreans didn't just study numbers, they worshipped them, feared them, and in the end were destroyed by them. And that's a mystery no equation can solve. In the shadowy corners of ancient Greece, where philosophy met mysticism, the Orphic mysteries whispered a destiny stranger than death itself. This secretive sect didn't just promise an afterlife, they offered escape from it. Followers of Orpheus, the legendary poet who dared to descend into the underworld, believed the soul was trapped in an endless cycle of reincarnation. But their solution wasn't prayer or sacrifice, it was inscribed on thin sheets of gold, buried with the dead as passports to eternity. Digging into graves across Greece and Italy, archaeologists have uncovered these eerie Orphic tablets, tiny, crumpled guides for the afterlife. Etched with cryptic instructions, they directed souls through the underworld's horrors. Avoid the spring on the left to drink from the lake of memory, declare yourself pure. These weren't mere burial ornaments, they were cheat sheets for bypassing divine judgment. Initiates carried them like sacred tickets, ensuring they'd be recognized as Bacchos a title reserved for those reborn not as mortals but as gods. Yet the path to divinity demanded extremes. Followers participated in the Omophagia a ritual so visceral it blurred the line between human and deity. In a frenzy of ecstatic worship, they tore into raw animal flesh, believing they consumed the essence of Dionysus himself. This wasn't mere barbarism, it was a sacrament. The act symbolized tearing apart the god's mythical form, dismembered by titans in Orphic lore, and absorbing his immortality. Wine flowed, drums pounded, and participants collapsed into trances, convinced they'd shattered their mortal chains. What set the Orphics apart was their duality. They preached asceticism, avoiding meat, wearing white, renouncing violence, yet their rituals erupted in primal chaos. Philosophers like Plato mocked their contradictions while secretly borrowing their ideas of judgment and rebirth. Because beneath the blood and gold lay a revolutionary concept. The soul wasn't just immortal, it was divine, trapped in flesh like a prisoner. And the only way out was through ecstasy, memory, and a scrap of gold tucked between cold fingers. The Orphics left no temples, no grand statues, just those fragile tablets whispering from the dirt. Their legacy, a paradox. They sought purity through abandon, order through frenzy, and eternity by staring into the abyss. And in that contradiction, they touched something even modern minds can't shake: the terror and hope that we might be more than what we seem. Among the shifting sands of ancient Egypt, where gods walked among mortals in myth and ritual, one secret society promised not just devotion but divine transformation. The cult of Isis took the mysteries of death and rebirth and wove them into ceremonies so intense, initiates emerged believing they had touched eternity itself. Unlike the chaotic frenzy of Cybele's followers or the mathematical rigidity of the Pythagoreans, Isis's rites were a meticulously staged descent into the underworld, a spiritual theater where every gesture held cosmic significance. At the heart of the cult lay the myth of Osiris, Isis's murdered husband, whose dismembered body she painstakingly reassembled, restoring him to life. This wasn't just a story, it was the blueprint for initiation. Blindfolded and led through torch-lit temple corridors, devotees endured trials designed to strip away their old selves. They faced mock burials, locked in pitch-black chambers meant to simulate the tomb. Some accounts describe near drownings, a chilling reenactment of Osiris's fate, sealed in a coffin and cast into the Nile. Yet the terror had purpose. Just as Isis resurrected Osiris, initiates were reborn through ritual, emerging from darkness into blinding light, greeted by priests chanting, "*The Lord Osiris has been found." What made these ceremonies so potent was their sensory overload. Incense thickened the air, drums mimicked the heartbeat of the underworld, and at the critical moment, priests would unveil a gleaming statue of Isis, her golden wings outstretched, proof that death was merely a doorway. Roman writer Apuleius, who claimed to have undergone the rites, described the experience as approaching the very gates of the underworld and the threshold of Persephone, only to return bearing the light of the sun. But the cult's real power lay in its inclusivity. While other mystery religions barred women or non-citizens, Isis welcomed all enslaved people, merchants, even Roman emperors. Her temples became sanctuaries of hope, where the marginalized could wield divine authority denied to them in daily life. Sailors carried her image across the Mediterranean, invoking her as protector of lost souls. And in a final, haunting parallel to Osiris, initiates received tiny silver coffins containing miniature mummies' talismans, ensuring they too would conquer death. The cult of Isis didn't just preach resurrection, it engineered it, turning myth into visceral reality. And in that alchemy of fear and ecstasy, ordinary humans walked away believing, if only for a moment, they had become something immortal. Beneath the moonlit forests of ancient Greece, a different kind of worship unfolded, one that traded solemn hymns for screams, order for ecstasy, and reason for raw, untamed abandon. This was the world of the Dionysian cult, where devotees didn't just honor their god, they became him in rituals so extreme, they blurred the line between human and divine. At the center of this chaos stood the maenads, wild-eyed followers of Dionysus, god of wine and liberation. Clad in fawn skins and wreathed in ivy, these women, and often ordinary wives and mothers by day, would flee into the mountains at night, surrendering to a frenzy said to be channeled directly from the god himself. Wine flowed freely, but this wasn't mere drunkenness, it was sacred intoxication. Drums pounded, bodies twisted in hypnotic dances, and the air filled with cries of *uoi. A wordless invocation of Dionysus's power. Then came the *sparagmos*, the ritual tearing apart of live animals. With bare hands and teeth, the maenads would seize deer or bulls, rending them limb from limb in a grotesque reenactment of Dionysus's own mythic dismemberment. Ancient texts describe them devouring the raw flesh in a sacrament called *omophagy*, believing they consumed the god's essence. Witnesses spoke of superhuman strength, maenads lifting boulders, uprooting trees, even resisting swords. To the Greeks, this wasn't madness. It was *enthusiasmos*, the god literally entering his followers. But why such extremes? Dionysus wasn't just the patron of wine. He was the god of boundaries shattered between man and beast, order and chaos, sanity and ecstasy. His cult offered a rare space where women, often sidelined in Greek society, could wield unchecked power, overturning social norms in their sacred delirium. Even kings weren't immune. The tragic myth of Pentheus, torn apart by his own mother in a maenatic frenzy, served as a chilling warning. Resist Dionysus and the chaos you fear will consume you. Archaeologists have unearthed eerie evidence caves littered with animal bones, terracotta figurines of women mid-dance, their faces twisted in ecstatic agony. The cult's legacy lingers too, in theater where Greek drama began as ritual performances for Dionysus, blending catharsis and chaos. Because the Dionysian mysteries didn't just worship the god, they revealed a truth still unsettling today, that beneath civilization's thin veneer lies something primal, something even the ancients feared and revered. In the stark, sun-baked deserts near the Dead Sea, where cliffs crumble into salt-dusted valleys, an enigmatic brotherhood once lived in self-imposed exile. The Essenes weren't just another Jewish sect, they were radicals who turned their backs on society, convinced the world was hurtling toward divine judgment. While Jerusalem's temples bustled with ritual commerce, these men vanished into the wilderness, building austere communes where purity wasn't just a virtue, it was an obsession. Every dawn began the same way, silent prayer facing the rising sun, followed by ritual immersion in ice-cold cisterns. These weren't casual baths, they were acts of spiritual warfare. The Essenes believed water could scour sin from the soul, but only if the body and the community remained untainted. New initiates endured years of probation, handing over all possessions to the group. Disobedience meant expulsion and contact with outsiders unthinkable. Ancient historian Josephus described their meals as sacred ceremonies, with bread and wine served by priests in spotless white robes, eaten in total silence. But the Essenes' most haunting legacy lies in the caves of Qumran, where a teenage shepherd stumbled upon the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947. These fragile, 2,000-year-old manuscripts hidden in clay jars contain apocalyptic prophecies so vivid they read like ancient dystopian fiction. Among them, the *War Scroll* depicts a final battle between the Sons of Light, the Essenes, and the Sons of Darkness, foretelling celestial firestorms and angelic armies. Scholars now debate whether John the Baptist, with his desert preaching and ritual baptisms, might have been influenced by this separatist sect. What's striking isn't just their extremism, it's their foresight. The Essenes wrote of a Messiah who'd arrived twice, first as a suffering servant, later as a conquering king. Sound familiar? Their texts even condemned wealth inequality and corrupt priests with blistering fury, mirroring Jesus's later critiques. Yet, unlike early Christians, they didn't seek converts. They awaited annihilation, convinced only the pure would survive God's wrath. The desert preserved their secrets, but not their fate. By the 1st century, their commune lay in ruins, possibly destroyed by Roman legions. Were they martyrs for their faith or victims of their own isolation? The scrolls endure, whispering warnings across millennia, and in their ink-stained lines we glimpse a chilling truth. Some secrets aren't meant for the world, only for those willing to vanish into the wilderness to hear them. While other secret societies sought power through ecstasy or bloodshed, the Therapeutae chose silence as their weapon. Nestled on the shores of Egypt's Lake Merotes, this enigmatic Jewish sect vanished into solitude, convinced that loneliness was the key to divine revelation. Unlike the Essenes, who prepared for war, or the Pythagoreans, who worshipped numbers, the Therapeutae believed enlightenment came only when the world fell completely away, when the mind, stripped of all distraction, could finally hear the voice of God. Their daily rituals revolved around the sun's rhythms. Before dawn, members would gather in their white linen robes, facing east as the first light crested the horizon. But this wasn't passive observation, it was active invocation. Philo of Alexandria, the only ancient source to document them, describes their chanting as a kind of celestial harmony, where voices wove together in patterns meant to mirror the movements of stars and planets. To outsiders, it might have sounded like music. To the Therapeutae, it was a bridge to the divine, a way to synchronize human breath with the cosmos itself. The real mystery lay in their extreme isolation. Members lived in individual huts spaced deliberately far apart, meeting only for sacred meals and Sabbath rituals. For weeks, sometimes months, they would fast, meditate, and pore over scriptures in total seclusion, training their minds to detach from earthly desires. Philo claims some achieved prophetic visions, seeing fragments of the future or receiving messages from angels. Modern scholars suggest these trances might have been induced by malnutrition, sleep deprivation, or the sheer psychological toll of solitude. Yet the Therapeutae insisted their revelations were real, earned through purity, not delirium. What sets them apart is their quiet radicalism. While other mystery cults relied on elaborate rites, the Therapeutae stripped worship down to its barest essence, a single mind, a scrap of scripture, and the vast emptiness of the desert. Their legacy lingers in later monastic traditions, from Christian hermits to Buddhist monks. But perhaps their most haunting lesson is timeless, that in a world drowning in noise, the most profound secrets might only whisper to those willing to disappear completely. The Roman Empire didn't just conquer lands, it absorbed gods, reshaping foreign deities into something fiercer, more disciplined, more Roman asterisk, and no transformation was as striking as that of Mithras. Once a Persian god of contracts and light, he became the patron of legionaries in underground bunkers, his rituals a brutal stairway to divine power. This wasn't just worship, it was a cosmic boot camp where men climbed a seven-tiered ladder of agony and revelation, each step written in the stars. At the base of this hierarchy stood the Corax the raven. Draped in a bird mask, this initiate served as a messenger, his role tied to Mercury's celestial domain. But the true ordeal began with the Miles the soldier. Here, recruits knelt blindfolded as a sword grazed their throats, swearing allegiance to Mithras before a crown was offered, only to be shoved aside, declaring, Mithras alone is my crown. It was theater, yes, but theater with teeth. Failure meant expulsion or worse. Higher ranks like the Perses the Persian and Heliodromus Sunrunner mirrored celestial bodies, their rituals steeped in astrological lore. In pitch-black Mithraea initiates enacted the Tauroctony the bull-slaying scene not as bystanders but as players in a cosmic drama. Each element held meaning. The scorpion at the bull's genitals symbolized Saturn's destroying power. The dog licking blood represented Jupiter's benevolence. Even the cave's ceiling was a star map, with initiates moving through ranks like planets along the zodiac. Yet the most chilling rite awaited the Pater the father. Cloaked in crimson, he presided over sacred feasts of bread and wine, echoing Mithras's last meal with the sun god Sol before ascending to heaven. Archaeologists have found Mithraic banqueting halls with stone couches, their surfaces worn smooth by generations of warriors reclining in eerie communion. What made Roman Mithraism so potent was its fusion of mysticism and military precision. This wasn't passive prayer, it was a campaign for the soul where every scar, every whispered oath was a step closer to the god's favor. And when Rome crumbled, the caves fell silent, but the stars, they still hold the secrets. Beneath the towering oaks of ancient Gaul and Britain, where mist clung to the forest floor like a sacred veil, the Druids wielded a power that even Rome feared. These weren't mere priests, they were judges, healers, and keepers of secrets so potent that speaking them aloud could supposedly alter the fabric of reality. Julius Caesar, whose legions clashed with Celtic tribes, described them with a mix of awe and dread, painting a portrait of a shadowy elite who commanded nature itself. Yet their most chilling claim, that they bridged the gap between worlds not with prayers but with blood. Caesar's accounts, our primary window into their world, speak of wicked giants, towering effigies woven from branches and filled with living sacrifices. Set ablaze, these constructs allegedly burned as offerings to the gods, their screams swallowed by the crackling fire. Modern scholars debate the accuracy. Some argue Roman propaganda exaggerated the horror to justify conquest. But recent discoveries like the Lindo Man, a 2,000-year-old bog body with traces of ritual violence, hint that the line between myth and reality may have been thinner than we thought. Beyond the specter of sacrifice, the Druids' rites pulsed with an eerie reverence for the natural world. Mistletoe, that now innocent sprig of holiday kisses, was considered sacred beyond measure. Plucked with a golden sickle during the sixth moon, it was believed to hold the power of thunderbolts, capable of curing illnesses or cursing enemies. Oak groves served as their temples, their roots tangled with the underworld, their branches brushing the heavens. To cut one down was tantamount to murder, a crime punished not by man but by the gods themselves. What's haunting is how little we truly know. The Druids left no writings, believing knowledge this potent should never be imprisoned in ink. Their legacy survives in fragments, Celtic myths of shape-shifting, whispers of prophetic trances induced by hallucinogenic brews, and the stubborn persistence of traditions like Samhain, the festival that would evolve into Halloween. They remind us that some truths resist excavation, lingering instead in the rustle of leaves, the twist of mistletoe, and the embers of a fire long gone cold. Rome eventually crushed their power, banning Druidic practices outright. Yet in the hush of ancient forests where oaks still stand sentinel, it's hard not to wonder if their secrets endure, not in artifacts but in the land itself. Because the Druids didn't just worship nature, they spoke its language, and some tongues never truly go silent. In the hush of midnight, where three roads converged in the ancient world, whispers spoke of a goddess who walked the knife's edge between realms. Hecate, the queen of witches, guardian of the crossroads, ruled over magic so potent that even the gods hesitated to cross her. Unlike the structured rites of Mithras or the wild frenzies of Dionysius, her worship was intimate, shadowed, and steeped in the kind of power that thrived in the margins. To call upon Hecate was to step into the in-between, to kneel where the known world dissolved into something older, darker, and infinitely more mysterious. Her rituals unfolded beneath the new moon when darkness stretched its heaviest. Followers would leave offerings at crossroads, garlic coiled like serpents, honey pooled in clay bowls, or the ashes of enchanted herbs. But the most sacred gift, a black dog sacrificed in her name, this wasn't mere superstition, it was a calculated exchange. Dogs, with their loyalty and liminal sight, were Hecate's familiars, bridges between the living and the dead. Ancient texts describe her appearing with a pack of spectral hounds, their eyes flickering like distant lanterns, their howls echoing from the underworld itself. What made Hecate's cult so compelling was its duality. She was both protector and destroyer, a guide for lost souls and a nightmare for the unwary. In one hand, she carried a torch to illuminate the path, in the other, a dagger to sever it. Her devotees ranged from lonely midwives seeking her aid in childbirth to assassins invoking her blessing for silent kills. The *Hecate suppers * monthly feasts left at crossroads weren't just meals, they were contracts. Eat the offering and you pledged yourself to her service. Ignore it and risk her wrath. Archaeologists have unearthed tiny lead tablets near ancient crossroads, etched with curses in Hecate's name, binding enemies to suffering. One, found in modern-day Turkey, reads, *, just as this dog lies powerless, so too shall my foe. *, the message was clear. Hecate didn't just preside over magic. She was magic, a force that bent fate itself. Her legacy lingers where shadows gather in the flicker of candle flames, the hush before a storm, the eerie stillness of a crossroads at midnight, because Hecate's greatest secret wasn't her power, it was her accessibility. She didn't demand grand temples or blood-soaked altars, just a whispered plea in the dark, a gift left where paths diverged, and the courage to face what answered. And that's a kind of magic no empire could ever erase. Amid the dust-choked libraries of ancient Egypt and the clandestine meeting rooms of Rome, a radical belief took root, one that turned conventional spirituality on its head. The Gnostics didn't just question religious authority, they declared the material world itself a prison, crafted not by a benevolent god, but by a flawed, arrogant impostor. Demiurge, they called this creator a cosmic craftsman who wove the illusion of reality like a spider spinning a trap. But escape was possible, hidden in secret gospels, anointed oils, and rituals designed to shatter the illusion. Among their most explosive texts was the Gospel of Judas *, a manuscript so controversial it was buried for centuries. Unlike traditional scripture, it painted Judas not as a betrayer, but as the only disciple who truly understood Christ's mission, to liberate humanity from the Demiurge's grip. In its pages, Jesus whispers to Judas *, "You will exceed all of them, for you will sacrifice the man that clothes me." Here, the crucifixion wasn't tragedy, it was liberation, a shedding of the false material body to reunite with the divine light beyond. But how did one awaken to this truth? Gnostic rituals held the key. Initiates underwent baptisms not with water, but with sacred ointments believed to carry sparks of the true, hidden God. Fragments from the Gospel of Philip describe these anointings as the resurrection before death, a foreshadowing of the soul's eventual flight. Archaeologists have uncovered tiny vials in Coptic graves, still faintly scented with myrrh and cinnamon, hinting at these clandestine rites. The most startling Gnostic revelation: salvation wasn't earned through faith or deeds, but through knowledge, gnosis in Greek. Not book learning, but a visceral, revelatory knowing, like waking from a dream. Their creation myth tells of Sophia, a divine emanation whose longing gave birth to the Demiurge. Humanity, they believed, carried fragments of her light, trapped in flesh but aching to return. What makes the Gnostics so haunting is their defiance. They dared to claim the universe was flawed, that the soul's home lay beyond the stars. Rome burned their texts, the Church branded them heretics, and yet centuries later, their Gospels emerged from desert caves, whispering the same dangerous truth, that sometimes to find the divine you must first reject the world. The arrival of spring in the ancient Mediterranean wasn't just a change of seasons, it was a time of chaos, rebirth, and rituals so visceral they blurred the line between agony and ecstasy. Few cults embodied this paradox more starkly than the followers of Attis, the doomed lover of the goddess Cybele. While most spring festivals celebrated life's renewal with flowers and song, theirs was a spectacle of blood-soaked pine trees, frenzied self-mutilation, and a resurrection myth that left even Roman historians uneasy. At the heart of their rites lay the Dies Sanguinis *, the Day of Blood, a gruesome reenactment of Attis's mythic demise. According to legend, the young shepherd, driven mad by Cybele's jealous love, castrated himself beneath a pine tree, bleeding out as his life force seeped into the earth. Yet from that sacrifice came a miracle. 3 days later, he rose again, reborn through the goddess's power. Initiates didn't just memorialize this story, they relived it. Young men, whipped into a frenzy by flutes and drums, would take blades to their own flesh in symbolic emulation of Attis's act, their blood watering the roots of sacred pines. Roman writer Lucretius described the scene with horrified fascination. Their whirling knives glinted in the sun, their shouts mingling with the screams of the wounded. But the horror had purpose. The pine tree, central to the ritual, wasn't just a prop, it was a vessel. Cultists would cut down a towering pine, wrap its trunk in linen like a corpse, and adorn it with violets said to have sprung from Attis's blood. Then, in a shocking twist, they buried it only to unearth it days later, now symbolically resurrected. Modern scholars see parallels to later Christian imagery, the tree as a precursor to the cross, the blood as a covenant of renewal. What's most striking is how the festival's tone shifted abruptly from despair to delirium. After the day of blood came the Hilaria literally, the day of joy. Mourning gave way to feasting, dancing, and even role reversals where masters served slaves, as if Attis's resurrection upended the very order of society. It was catharsis in its rawest form, pain transformed into celebration, death into rebirth. Archaeologists have unearthed tiny ivory effigies of Attis, his face frozen in serene repose despite the violence of his myth. These tokens, often clutched in the hands of initiates' graves, suggest a quiet hope that even the most extreme sacrifice could lead to transcendence. The cult of Attis didn't just worship a god, they became him season after season, in a cycle of suffering and renewal that feels unsettlingly human. Because sometimes to find light, you must first embrace the dark. Deep in the caves of ancient Crete, where stalactites dripped like frozen tears, a brotherhood of dancers turned ritual into therapy centuries before modern medicine. The Corybantes weren't just priests, they were pioneers of the mind, wielding drums and dance as weapons against madness. Clad in bronze armor that caught the firelight like shuddering stars, they performed ceremonies so thunderous, witnesses claimed the very earth shook beneath their feet. At the heart of their practice lay a paradox: chaos as cure. Initiates afflicted with divine madness, what we might now call anxiety or psychosis, were immersed in a sensory storm. Bronze shields clashed like cymbals, feet stamped in frenzied rhythms, and the air vibrated with the relentless pounding of taut-skinned drums. Ancient texts describe participants collapsing into convulsions, only to rise hours later eerily calm. Greek physicians later dubbed this the Corybantian rite speculating the overload shocked the mind back into balance, an ancient precursor to electroconvulsive therapy, but with hides and bronze instead of electrodes. What's haunting is how closely their methods mirror modern trauma treatments. Psychologists now recognize rhythmic stimulation, like drumming or dance, can regulate nervous systems shattered by stress. The Corybantes may have stumbled onto a primal truth, that sometimes to heal the mind you must first drown its demons in noise. Even Plato took notes, writing that these rites could reawaken souls trapped in cycles of fear. But the cult's true secret wasn't just sound, it was symbiosis. The dancers worshipped Cybele, the same mother goddess whose priests castrated themselves in frenzied devotion. Yet where the embraced pain, the Corybantes weaponized ecstasy. Their rites weren't sacrifices, they were resurrections, pulling broken minds back from the brink through sheer, deafening joy. Archaeologists have found Cretan caves littered with broken drums and votive figurines, tiny dancers frozen mid-spin. No scrolls detail their rituals. The knowledge was written in movement, in vibration, in the hollow echo of a drumhead struck just right. Because some cures defy words, They pulse in the blood instead, passed down through generations like a heartbeat or a rhythm too loud to ignore. In the rugged highlands of ancient Thrace, where whispers of the divine coiled like mist through mountain passes, the cult of Sabazios practiced rites that would make even the most hardened worshippers shudder. This enigmatic god, often linked to Dionysus, yet far more primal, commanded devotion through a symbol that slithered through the nightmares of the uninitiated, the serpent. But these weren't mere symbols, they were living, twisting conduits to the divine, wielded in ceremonies where ecstasy and danger coiled together. The heart of their ritual lay in the Thyasos asterisk, a frenzied procession where initiates danced with serpents draped around their necks like living garlands. Ancient reliefs show Sabazios himself clutching writhing snakes, his worshippers mirroring the act in a sacred mimicry of their god's power. Unlike the controlled rituals of Isis or Mithras, these ceremonies thrived on unpredictability. The flick of a serpent's tongue, the sudden tightening of its scales around bare flesh. To handle the creatures unharmed was proof of Sabazios' favor. A bite, some whispered, was a mark of his displeasure or worse, a test of faith. But the cult's most controversial relics were the Sabazios hands bizarre bronze amulets shaped like a deity's outstretched fingers, often adorned with serpents, pine cones, and cryptic symbols. Found scattered from the Balkans to Rome, these objects were far more than jewelry. Pressed against the body during fertility rites, they were believed to channel the god's creative force. Some scholars argue the pine cone, a recurring motif, represented the pineal gland, linking the ritual to heightened consciousness. Others point to their use in hieros gomos sacred marriages where the amulet was placed between partners to invoke Sabazios' blessing upon conception. The darkest whispers, though, swirl around their alleged role in Ophidian incubation a ritual where serpents were placed upon the abdomens of barren women, their movements interpreted as divine messages. Greek playwright Aristophanes even mocked the practice, writing of charlatans who made serpents dance for coins. Yet archaeological finds lend eerie credence. A Sabazios hand discovered in Pompeii was clutched in the skeletal grip of a woman, its surface worn smooth from desperate touches. What makes Sabazios' cult so haunting is its duality, the serpent as both life-giver and death-bringer, the amulet as hope and obsession. Unlike the orderly mysteries of Eleusis, this was worship stripped raw, where faith was measured in risk and relics held the weight of longing. And in that tension, Sabazios' legacy endures, not in grand temples but in the silent glide of scales through grass and the cold bronze of a god's hand still reaching across centuries. Before Rome's emperors consulted advisors or senators debated policy, they turned to a group of shadowy figures who claimed to read destiny in the quivering flesh of slaughtered animals, the Etruscan haruspices. These weren't just priests, they were ancient forensic analysts, dissecting divine messages from the very organs that once sustained life. While other cultures sought omens in stars or bird flights, the Etruscans believed the gods spoke most clearly through the still warm entrails of sacrificed beasts. The ritual began with meticulous precision. A flawless sheep or bull, unblemished, unbroken, was led to the altar, its fate sealed before the first cut. As the blade slid across its throat, the haruspices watched for signs. A stumble, a delayed collapse, even the direction of the blood's flow could foretell victory or ruin. But the true revelation lay in the liver. Extracted with ritual care, this organ was mapped like a celestial chart, divided into sections corresponding to specific gods and cosmic forces. A discolored lobe might warn of impending famine. An abnormally shaped gallbladder could signal betrayal in the Senate. What made Etruscan divination unique was its terrifying accuracy. Historical accounts describe haruspices predicting disasters days before they struck, fires, military defeats, even the assassination of emperors, the key. Their asterisk library Tagatus, secret scriptures allegedly dictated by a divine child, Tages, who emerged from a plowed field with wisdom etched into his skin. These texts weren't vague prophecies, they were anatomical guidebooks detailing how every vein, lobe, and lesion translated to human events. Yet for all their influence, the haruspices were outsiders. Hailing from Etruria, modern Tuscany, they wielded power in Rome while remaining culturally distinct, their rituals viewed with equal parts awe and suspicion. When Julius Caesar's sacrificed bull lacked a heart, an omen so dire it allegedly sealed his fate, the haruspices warning was ignored. Days later, he lay bleeding in the Senate. Archaeologists have unearthed bronze liver models intricately inscribed with divine names, used to train initiates. These artifacts reveal a system so sophisticated it parallels modern diagnostics, reading the body's secrets like a text. The Etruscans didn't just practice divination, they turned it into a science, one where the line between medicine and magic bled together. And in that tension, they grasped a truth we still reckon with today, that sometimes the future isn't written in stars but in the very flesh we take for granted. Under the pale glow of a crescent moon, a haunting procession swept through the forests of ancient Thrace, torches flickering, hoofbeats pounding, women clad in animal skins swirling in wild, rhythmic abandon. This was the cult of Bendis, where worship wasn't confined to temple walls but erupted in nocturnal revelries so mesmerizing that even Athens' greatest minds couldn't resist their pull. Unlike the rigid pantheon of Olympus, Bendis, the fierce Thracian goddess of the moon and the hunt, embodied untamed freedom. Her followers rode horseback through the night, their faces streaked with sacred ash, carrying torches that cast eerie shadows between the trees. The rhythmic clash of cymbals and the deep thrum of drums echoed like a heartbeat, driving dancers into trances where they claimed to glimpse the goddess herself, her silver bow gleaming as she raced across the sky. What shocked Athenian society wasn't just the cult's foreign roots, it was who embraced it. Plato himself referenced Bendis' festivals in his writings, describing how her annual torchlight procession became an official Athenian event by the 5th century BC. Imagine the scene, philosophers in their pristine white robes rubbing shoulders with Thracian priestesses, the smoky scent of pine torches mixing with the sweat of dancers whirling in ecstasy. For a society that prided itself on order, the cult's raw energy was intoxicating. But Bendis' appeal went deeper than spectacle. Her duality, huntress and lunar guide, spoke to those seeking balance between instinct and intellect. Ancient texts describe initiates undergoing a catharsis, a purging of societal constraints through dance, emerging, reborn under the moon's gaze. Modern scholars note parallels with later Dionysian rites, suggesting Bendis' cult may have pioneered the idea of ecstatic ritual as spiritual liberation. Archaeologists have unearthed votive plaques near Athens depicting Bendis astride a galloping horse. Her torch held high proof of her unexpected integration into Greek life. Yet her true power lay in what she represented. The wildness that exists just beyond civilization's edge, the call of the moon that even philosophers couldn't rationalize away. Because sometimes the deepest truths aren't found in dialogues or debates, but in the thunder of hooves and the flicker of a flame against the dark. In the shadow of Alexandria's legendary library, where Greek philosophy met Egyptian mysticism, a revolutionary god rose to power not through conquest but through dreams. Serapis was a divine paradox, a deliberately crafted fusion of Osiris and Zeus, his bearded face echoing Greek artistry while his roots coiled deep into the Nile's sacred soil. But his true power lay in the Serapeum's labyrinthine halls, where the sick and desperate came not for medicine, but for sleep, a sleep so potent it could bridge the gap between mortals and the divine. The ritual of incubation was deceptively simple. Pilgrims would lie upon special couches in the temple's dim inner chambers, their bodies anointed with oils of myrrh and lotus, their minds primed by priests chanting hymns to Serapis. As torches flickered low, the air thickened with the scent of sacred herbs, frankincense to purify, poppy to ease the mind into visions. Then came the waiting. For days, sometimes weeks, devotees slept in that liminal space, convinced Serapis would visit them in dreams, revealing cures no physician could replicate. What made these visions so extraordinary was their specificity. A soldier with a festering wound might dream of the god pressing golden thread into his injury, only to wake with flesh inexplicably knitted. A barren woman recounted Serapis handing her a clay doll swaddled in linen. 9 months later, she bore a child. Even skeptics like the orator Aelius Aristides documented miracles, describing how incubation healed his chronic illness after years of failed treatments. Modern scholars suggest the temple's hypnotic atmosphere combined with the placebo effect and potent aromatics might explain some recoveries, but the surviving votive tablets tell a different story. Serapis spoke and I was whole. Yet the cult's genius lay in its inclusivity. Unlike older Egyptian cults which demanded racial or cultural purity, Serapis welcomed all Greek merchants, Roman soldiers, Egyptian farmers, uniting them under a single hybrid deity. His priests were equal parts therapists and mystics, interpreting dreams with a lexicon blending Hippocratic medicine and ancient symbolism. A snake in a vision might signify renewal, Egypt's uraeus, or healing, Asclepius's staff, depending on the dreamer's roots. When Rome converted to Christianity, the Serapeum became a target. Mobs tore down its statues, burned its scrolls, and sealed its dream chambers beneath the desert. But dig near Alexandria's ruins today, and you might find tiny terracotta body parts, ears, eyes, limbs, left as offerings centuries ago. Each one whispers the same plea, let the god speak in my sleep. Because Serapis's greatest secret wasn't just healing, it was hope measured in the quiet breaths between waking and dream. While most ancient mystery cults barred women from their innermost rites, one forbidden tradition turned feminine grief into sacred theater: the cult of Adonis. Every summer, when the Mediterranean sun scorched the earth dry, women across Greece and the Near East gathered in secluded rooftop gardens to mourn a doomed god whose beauty was matched only by his tragedy. At the center of these rituals lay the gardens of Adonis, shallow clay pots filled with fast-sprouting herbs like fennel and lettuce, tender shoots that withered as quickly as they grew. This wasn't horticulture, it was a living metaphor. Adonis, lover of Aphrodite, was fated to die young, gored by a boar in myth, only to be reborn each year in an endless cycle of love and loss. The women nurtured these fragile greens with ritual precision, watering them with their own tears before deliberately letting them bake under the summer sun. The plant's rapid death mirrored Adonis's fate, while their inevitable regrowth whispered of resurrection. Ancient playwrights like Theocritus painted vivid scenes of these ceremonies: perfumed oil poured over Adonis's effigy, dirges sung in hushed harmony, and finally, the god's tiny idol cast into the sea at dawn, only to be retrieved and revived the following year. But the most startling detail: men were strictly forbidden. Unlike public festivals where women's roles were often sidelined, these rites were a rare space for unchecked feminine lament. Even courtesans, marginalized in daily life, took center stage as priestesses, their grief granted sacred legitimacy. Archaeologists have unearthed terracotta figurines of Adonis from Athens to Cyprus, his ivory skin painted with delicate blush, his body arranged in the languid pose of eternal youth. Some are flanked by miniature ladders, possibly symbolizing the soul's ascent from the underworld, but the real power lay in those fleeting rooftop gardens. For a culture that prized stoicism, the cult gave women permission to weep openly, to turn heartbreak into something holy. What makes Adonis's worship so haunting isn't just the myth, it's the raw humanity beneath it. These rituals didn't just commemorate a god's death, They honored the universal ache of loving what cannot last, and in that shared sorrow, the women found something unexpected. Not despair, but the quiet certainty that even the briefest beauty leaves seeds behind. After all, what withers today may yet rise tomorrow, if only in someone else's tears. On the windswept island of Samothrace, where the Aegean Sea crashes against jagged cliffs, an ancient brotherhood offered sanctuary to those who braved the waves' fury. The cult of the Kabiri, guardians of sailors, smiths, and secrets, conducted initiation rites so potent that even Alexander the Great reportedly sought their protection before conquest. Unlike the blood-soaked spectacles of Cybele or the cosmic trials of Mithras, their mysteries unfolded in elemental duality, flames that purified and waters that swallowed, a dance between destruction and salvation. At the heart of their rituals stood the *Kabaroi*, enigmatic twin gods whose true names were whispered only in darkness. Ancient texts describe initiates led blindfolded through torch-lit tunnels, the roar of waves echoing beneath their feet as priests chanted spells against shipwrecks. Then came the trial by opposites, embers scattered across water, hissing as they drowned, while initiates balanced on the knife's edge between panic and trust. Survived the ordeal, and they received the cult's most coveted gift, the Samothracian charm *, a tiny lead disc etched with spirals and strange beasts, said to calm storms and turn enemy blades. What made these tokens so feared? Archaeologists have dredged them from Mediterranean shipwrecks, still looped around the skeletal wrists of doomed sailors. Some bear cryptic inscriptions, *the Kabaroi walk with you. Modern metallurgists found traces of magnetite in the charms, hinting at early compass-like navigation aids, or perhaps something more esoteric. The Kabiri, linked to volcanic Hephaestus, may have harnessed lodestone's pull as divine guidance, blurring the line between science and sorcery. Yet the cult's true power lay in its paradox. These weren't reclusive mystics. Their sanctuary thrived on a bustling trade route, welcoming everyone from Athenian aristocrats to Phoenician deckhands. A 4th century BC inscription lists initiates from across the Mediterranean, proof that in a world divided by language and creed, the Kabiri offered a universal promise, safe passage. Their rites didn't demand celibacy or austerity, just courage to face the deep's caprice. Today, the island's ruins still whisper of their legacy. A sacred rock carved with twin footprints marks where initiates once stood, bearing their souls to the gods of metal and tide. And perhaps that's the Kabiri's enduring secret, not the charms or the flames, but the understanding that some protections aren't just given. They're forged in the space between trust and terror, where every wave could drown you or carry you home. Beneath the marble colonnades of ancient Greece, where the scent of crushed herbs hung heavy in the air, a sanctuary offered hope to those medicine had abandoned. The cult of Asclepius turned healing into a holy act, one where serpents slithered across fevered brows, and dreams held more power than any physician's knife. Unlike the blood-soaked rituals of Cybele or the cosmic trials of Mithras, this was a mystery cult built on miracles, where the line between science and the divine dissolved into something extraordinary. At the heart of Asclepius's temples lay the Abaton *, a sacred dormitory where the sick underwent in koimesis *, a ritual sleep said to summon the god himself. Pilgrims would lie on stone couches, their bodies anointed with oils of laurel and myrtle, as temple priests released non-venomous snakes to glide over their wounds. Ancient accounts describe the serpent's tongues flicking against infected flesh, possibly cleansing it with enzymes similar to modern antiseptics, but the true revelation came in dreams. Patients reported visions of Asclepius, sometimes as a bearded healer, other times as a serpent, performing surreal surgeries, opening chests to remove diseased organs, sealing wounds with golden thread, even replacing blood with divine ichor. Many awoke cured, their ailments vanished without a scar. Scholars still debate how these miracles occurred. Some point to the temple's strategic locations near natural springs rich in minerals, their waters laced with unconscious painkillers. Others suggest the rituals induced a hypnagogic state where the mind's suggestive power accelerated healing. The most compelling evidence, surgical tools found at Epidaurus, Asclepius's greatest sanctuary, scalpels, probes, and even early bone drills, hinting that priest-physicians may have performed actual procedures under the guise of divine intervention. Yet what set Asclepius apart was his accessibility. While Eleusis demanded secrecy and Mithras excluded women, his temples welcomed all, enslaved people, soldiers, even the destitute. Votive offerings discovered at these sites, terracotta limbs, eyes, and hearts, tell silent stories of gratitude. One inscription from Rome recounts a man named Lucius who arrived blind and departed seeing, claiming Asclepius peeled away a film like eggshell from his eyes in a dream. The cult's legacy pulses through modern medicine. The serpent coiled around a staff remains our symbol of healing. But perhaps its true lesson is older still. That sometimes the most profound cures begin where logic ends, in the liminal space between waking and dream, where a god, or the belief in one, can mend what flesh alone cannot. Deep in the highlands of ancient Anatolia, where the earth trembled with subterranean power, a goddess unlike any other commanded absolute devotion, Cybele, the Great Mother. Her origins stretch back to the dawn of civilization, worshipped by the Phrygians as Magna Mater *, a primal force of nature, both nurturing and terrifying. But what began as a local mountain cult would soon unleash a spiritual storm across the Roman world, leaving a trail of ecstatic processions, shattered taboos, and rituals so extreme they defied all reason. Rome first embraced Cybele out of desperation. In the darkest hours of the Second Punic War, as Hannibal's armies loomed at the gates, the Senate consulted the Sibylline books, ancient prophecies that demanded the Great Mother's arrival. In 204 BCE, her sacred black meteorite was transported from Pessinus to Rome with unprecedented fanfare. Yet the Romans soon realized they'd invited a paradox, a goddess powerful enough to save them but too wild to control. Every April, her festival, the Megalesia transformed Rome's streets into a theater of divine chaos. Gilded chariots carried her meteorite through crowds, while her priests, the Galli whirled in frenzied dances, their robes flashing crimson, their long hair smeared with sacrificial blood. But it was the dies sanguinis the Day of Blood, that seared itself into history. Amidst wailing flutes and pounding drums, new initiates would take knives to their own flesh in a ghastly reenactment of Attis's mythic castration, dedicating themselves as eunuch priests in Cybele's service. Roman aristocrats looked on in horrified fascination. This was devotion stripped of all restraint, where pain became the ultimate offering. Archaeologists have uncovered tiny silver votives, severed genitalia offered by the Galli buried near her temples. Yet for all its shock value, Cybele's cult held a profound allure. She offered liberation from societal chains, a space where the marginalized women, foreigners, even enslaved people, could wield sacred authority. The poet Catullus captured this duality, portraying Attis's self-mutilation as both tragedy and transcendence. Now I am no longer a woman, yet no longer a man, I am the servant of Cybele. Rome never fully tamed the Great Mother. Even as emperors built her lavish temples, they kept her wild rites at arm's length, confining the Galli to the cult's periphery. But in that tension between order and ecstasy, control and abandon, Cybele's power endured, because some gods don't ask for prayer. They demand blood, surrender, and the courage to stare into the abyss of what devotion truly means. On the banks of the Nile, where the desert heat blurred the line between myth and reality, a grieving emperor rewrote the rules of divinity. After the tragic drowning of his beloved Antinous in 130 CE, Hadrian didn't just mourn, he orchestrated a godhood. The cult of Antinous wasn't merely a memorial, It was a calculated fusion of Egyptian death rites and Greek hero worship, spun into golden propaganda for a heartbroken empire. Temples to Antinous sprang up like desert wildflowers after a rare rain, from the streets of Rome to the farthest corners of Egypt. But the most haunting rituals unfolded in Antinopolis, the city Hadrian built where his lover perished. Here, priests blended Osirian resurrection myths with Greek athletic games, transforming the beautiful youth into something unprecedented, a god of sorrow and eternal renewal. Statues depicted him with the melancholic grace of a dying Dionysus, his eyes heavy with the weight of divine favor. What made this cult extraordinary was its duality. In Egypt, Antinous was revered as Osiris Antinous, a reborn god whose death mirrored the Nile's life-giving floods. Excavations reveal mummified ibises sacred to Thoth, buried with his name, suggesting his cult absorbed local magic. Yet in Greece, he became a hero akin to Achilles, celebrated in poetry and nude statues that echoed classical ideals. Hadrian's genius lay in this synthesis, a personal loss repackaged as imperial unity, binding fractured cultures through shared veneration. The rites themselves were a spectacle of staged resurrection. During the annual Antinoia athletes competed in his honor while priests performed the opening of the mouth ceremony, an Egyptian ritual meant to restore senses in the afterlife on his effigy. Witnesses described silver mirrors catching the dawn light to awaken his spirit, a theatrical nod to both Greek light symbolism and Egyptian solar myths. But beneath the pageantry lurked darker whispers. Some historians suggest Antinous' death was no accident, but a deliberate sacrifice to secure Hadrian's failing health through divine bargaining. A papyrus fragment from Oxyrhynchus alludes to a life given for a life, while cursed tablets found near Antinopolis invoke his name alongside chthonic deities. Whether martyr or manipulated icon, Antinous' cult reveals how grief, when wielded by power, can bend even eternity to its will. His image endures not in grand temples but in countless busts that outlasted Rome itself. Each one captures the same haunting beauty, frozen between mortality and myth, because the greatest secret of Antinous' cult wasn't in its rituals but in its silent question: when does love end and propaganda begin? As the winter solstice plunged Rome into its coldest, darkest nights, a rival faith emerged to challenge Christianity's rise, not with force but with stolen sunlight. The Cult of Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun, didn't just worship a celestial body, they engineered a spiritual revolution that would quietly shape the modern world. Behind the marble facades of imperial temples, this clandestine brotherhood staged an annual rebirth spectacle so potent, its echoes still flicker in every Christmas tree and string of holiday lights. Emperor Aurelian made Sol Invictus Rome's official sun god in 274 CE, but the ritual's roots burned far older. Every December 25th, as the solstice's gloom began to recede, robed priests gathered before dawn to ignite sacred fires, chanting as the sun's first rays struck gilded statues. Coins minted for the occasion showed Sol's radiant crown with the defiant motto *Oriens Augustus *, the rising emperor. This wasn't mere astronomy, it was political theater fusing solar power with imperial authority. Devotees exchanged gifts of candles and fruit, symbols of light and abundance returning to a frozen world. Then came Christianity's quiet coup. By the 4th century, as Rome's pagan grip weakened, church leaders faced a dilemma: how to convert a population devoted to Sol's midwinter revelry. Their solution, spiritual camouflage. In 336 CE, December 25th was officially declared Christ's birth date, despite biblical scholars acknowledging shepherds wouldn't have been tending flocks in winter. The parallels were undeniable, both gods heralded as light of the world, both births celebrated with feasts and gift-giving. Even the Star of Bethlehem mirrored pagan solar imagery. The most striking evidence lies beneath Vatican City itself. Excavations under St. Peter's Basilica revealed an ancient mosaic of Sol Invictus driving his chariot across the sky, a pagan relic buried beneath Christianity's holiest site. Historians argue this was no accident but a deliberate act of symbolic conquest. By building their churches atop sun temples and rebranding Sol's festivals as Christ's nativity, early Christians didn't erase pagan traditions, they rewrote them. Modern Christmas still bears Sol Invictus's fingerprints, from the timing of celebrations to the wreaths that mirror solar discs. Yet the cult's true legacy isn't in stolen rituals, but in humanity's timeless longing for light in the dark. Whether kindled by a Roman priest or a child's candle, that hope remains unconquered. And perhaps that's the most fascinating secret of all, how easily faiths blur when facing the longest night. From the hallucinogenic visions of Eleusis to the blood-soaked altars of Cybele, these 25 secret societies reveal humanity's unshakable obsession with the forbidden. Whether through Pythagorean number worship or Dionysian ecstasy, each cult sought the same elusive truth: that real power lies just beyond the edge of what society dares to name. The Mithraic soldiers who climbed ranks in torchlit caves, the Orphic followers clutching golden afterlife guides, the maenads tearing through flesh under the moon, they all traded ordinary lives for a taste of something transcendent. What's haunting isn't the brutality or the theatrics, but the raw vulnerability beneath them. These weren't just rituals, they were desperate attempts to answer questions we still grapple with today. Is there meaning beyond death? Can pain purify? Does ecstasy bring us closer to the divine? Modern echoes are everywhere, from exclusive fraternities with coded handshakes to viral conspiracy theories that promise hidden knowledge. The hunger hasn't faded, it's just swapped bull sacrifices for algorithms and initiation robes for influencer clout. So where do you see these ancient impulses resurfacing? In the comments, share which modern groups or trends feel like spiritual successors to these secret societies. And if peeling back history's hidden layers excites you, don't forget to subscribe. We're just scratching the surface. Because the most unsettling truth of all, the mysteries never really end, they just evolve.